Zack Morris was Saved by the Bell's cool one. That was the consensus we carried out of childhood. Mark Paul Gosselaar, blonde, tall, brick phone in hand. 1 step ahead of Mr. Belden, 2 steps ahead of everyone at Bayside High. He was the guy. But then we got older, we rewatched, and something started to feel a little off. The schemes were no longer clever so much as they were predatory. His friends were resources. His apologies at the end of every episode were a reset button he kept slapping every week. Saved by the Bell never really showed us a kid pulling one over the system. It showed us a kid pulling one over on his friends, week after week, with a laugh track to distract us. Dashiell Driscoll's Zack Morris' Trash series on Funny or Die has already made this case. The 2020 Peacock reboot hired Driscoll to write it, which tells us something. Whether Zack was trash is settled. The part that's worth figuring out is why it worked on us in the first place. Why a generation spent years rooting for a kid who manipulated and discarded the people closest to him and called it friendship. The answer really isn't about Zack, it's about the show that protected him. Pull the memory back for a second. Saturday morning, cereal getting soggy, the NBC Peacock spinning, that opening guitar lick hitting before our parents were even awake, Bayside High in pastel, lockers in primary colors, the Max with its checkboard floor, and Max, the magician, doing card tricks for kids who clearly had nowhere else to be on a school night. Zack would freeze time, look right at us, tell us the plan. We were in on it. We were his audience and his accomplice. Slater would flex, Screech would yelp, Kelly would smile in soft focus, Lisa would land a one-liner, Jessie would ace an exam, and Zack would wink, and we'd wink back. The cool kid was finally letting us sit at his table. Here's the argument. Saved by the Bell trained us to mistake selfishness for charm. The show built a cold, closed system where the lead character's worst behavior always got reframed as a scheme, a hijinks, a wacky teenage misadventure. The people he'd hurt always absorbed the cost. Zack wasn't the hero because of loyalty or kindness. He was the hero because he was funny, good-looking, confident, and the show's structure refused to ever seriously punish him for any of it. Charisma overrode accountability, every single time. That's the mechanism we want to get our hands on. Once you see it in Zack, you start seeing it everywhere. In the boss who jokes his way out of taking responsibility. In the friend who burns you and then buys you a drink and expects the whole thing to be over. We were the test audience for it, learning in real time that if a guy is entertaining enough, the rules bend around him. That lesson didn't stay on the screen. It came home with us. The show, on paper, is simple. 6 friends at a California high school. The cool guy, the jock, the nerd, the cheerleader, the activist, the fashion plate. A bumbling principal, a neon set. 22 minutes of low-stakes problems wrapped up by the credits. The actual engine of the show isn't the friend group. It's Zack's wants. Every episode starts with him deciding he needs something. A girl, a car, a bet won, a radio station, a trip to Hawaii, a pop star's attention. Once the want was locked in, the rest of the cast gets recruited, drafted, or tricked into making it happen. Watch enough episodes back to back, and the pattern becomes a beat sheet. Zack wants something, Zack pulls the group into the scheme escalates, something goes wrong, usually because Zack lied to someone he supposedly loves. There's a third act crisis. Zack delivers a soft apology, music swells, reset. Nobody changes, nobody walks away, the friends absorb the damage and show up Monday morning ready to be drafted into the next scheme. Screech doesn't remember being sold, Kelly doesn't remember being manipulated, the slate gets wiped because the show needs the slate wiped to keep functioning. On the surface, it's a kid having adventures with his friends. Underneath that, Zack drives the plot, everyone else reacts, and the format makes sure nobody's anger lasts. This mechanism has a name, weaponized charm. Zack's primary skill isn't intelligence or athleticism, or even his much discussed scheming ability. His primary skills is being likable enough that nobody wants to hold him accountable. The show models this behavior, rewards it, and quietly teaches us to do the same. Pattern 1, the utility friendship. Zack uses Screech as a tool. When he needs homework done, Screech does it. When he needs a fall guy, Screech absorbs the blame. The show frames this as the cool guy looking out for the nerd. As an adult, it just looks like Screech does all the work, and Zack gets all the credit. Pattern 2, the romantic override. Zack engineers Kelly more than he pursues her. In the Zack Tapes episode, Season 1, Episode 14, he literally records subliminal messages onto a cassette in order to brainwash her into liking him. Kids watch this and saw a clever guy using technology to win his crush. Adults watch a guy trying to override what she actually wants. The show plays it as a sitcom plot. The actual content is darker than the framing. Pattern 3, the apology as currency. Zack's apologies are transactions. He performs remorse, the music cue tells us he means it, and the slate is clear. He never changes. He just gets better at the apology. Over 5 seasons, his manipulation gets more sophisticated, not less. Stack those patterns together and look at what we, as kids, were absorbing. We learned that if you're charming enough, your friends are obligated to forgive you. We learned that the apology matters more than the change. The rules were for other people. Now, this wasn't malicious on the show's part. It was how the show worked. The multicam sitcom needs a status quo, and the status quo at Bayside requires Zack to stay on top. So the writing protects him, the laugh track protects him, the format won't let the other characters stay mad long enough for anything to change. The show didn't ask whether Zack was a good friend, it asked whether he was entertaining enough to forgive. Every Saturday morning, our answer was yes. Take Miss Bayside, Season 2, Episode 8. Zack bets Slater $50 that he can get Screech to win the school beauty pageant. He talks Screech into entering as a gender trailblazer, but the real motivation is the bet. Screech is a wager, not a person. When Screech gets a black eye from an accident, Zack doesn't help him, he uses it. He frames Slater for hitting Screech, turning the injury into a sympathy play that boosts Screech's votes and tanks Slater's. One friend treated like a betting slip, the other framed for violence he didn't commit, in the same half hour. And Miss Bayside isn't even the worst of it. In the Lisa card, Season 1, Lisa runs up her father's credit card and panics. Zack's solution is a kiss-a-thon. He stands Lisa in front of the school and charges boys $1 each to kiss her. She has to go through with it. He's selling access to his friend's body in order to pay off her debt. Mark Paul Gosselaar himself has said he was, in his own words, basically, quote, whoring out, close quote, his co-star without her consent. He's called it one of the hardest episodes to rewatch. So here's the part we missed as kids. The friend group didn't just tolerate Zack's selfishness. The show required them to orbit it. Their entire function as characters was to react to him. Think about how little we actually know about the rest of the cast outside of Zack's gravitational pull. Slater has wrestling. Jessie has feminism and stress. Lisa has shopping and Screech's crush on her. Kelly is the prize. Screech is the punchline. None of them get to want anything that isn't, at some level, in service of a Zack plot. Take Jessie's song, Season 2, Episode 9. We remember the caffeine pills and the breakdown. What we forget is the framing around it. Zack didn't cause Jessie's collapse. He didn't fully grasp how serious it was getting until it was already happening. But because he's the lead, the show handed him the emotional close-up anyhow. He held her while she cried. He got the credit for being there. That's the pattern. Whatever happens around Zack, the show puts him at the moral center of how it resolves. Jessie's breakdown still ends up reinforcing Zack as the guy we're supposed to trust in the final moment. A friend Zack wronged becomes Zack's apology moment. Now we have to realize that when the show was made, to understand why it worked. Late 80s, early 90s. Network television. NBC Saturday morning. A day part engineered to sell cereal and action figures to kids. NBC needed a live-action property that could anchor the block, move merchandise, and keep parents from changing the channel. They needed a face. The face had to be a particular kind of cool. Not Ferris Bueller cool, who was a rebel against suburban deadness. Not Bart Simpson cool, who was an agent of chaos. Bayside cool. Clean, blonde, athletic, aspirational without being threatening. The kind of kid your mom will let you watch, and your dad would secretly wish he'd been. Zack Morris was built for that role. The show needed someone who could do the morally questionable plot, deliver the apology, and walk away with the audience's full affection intact. Quick side note, it's easy to forget that this show started as Good Morning Miss Bliss, a middle school sitcom on the Disney Channel. Zack was already faking illnessness and running cons on his teacher in the 8th grade. NBC didn't create the behavior, they just gave it a bigger stage. This was also the era of pseudo-mature teen content. Shows in this window kept casting kids as small adults, running businesses and working scams between algebra class. Zack ran a kissing booth, a phone scam, a radio station, a casino night, multiple gambling rings. The audience wasn't supposed to find this concerning. The audience was supposed to find it cool that a teenager was already operating like a 35-year-old. The show built its lead to be admirable specifically for behaviors that, in any other context, would be alarming. The schemes were the product. The apology framework existed to keep them legible to standards and practices, parents, and advertisers. Everybody got what they needed. Zack got the win, the network got the ratings, and we got a quiet, decade-long lesson in mistaking confidence for character. This pattern doesn't stay on Saved by the Bell. Once we know what we're looking at, we can spot it across the whole Millennial TV shelf. Ross Geller on Friends, whose controlling streak kept getting drawn as nerdy lovable awkwardness. Barney Stinson on How I Met Your Mother, where the move got pushed about as far as network sitcom could push it before the writers had to start reckoning with it. Network sitcoms in this era kept building shows around guys the audience wasn't allowed to stay angry at. Zack just happened to be the version we met first. So what did this actually teach us? Well, on the show level, the framing taught us how protagonist logic works. The lead's wants are the plot. Everyone else's wants are obstacles or accessories. When the lead does something cruel, the writing finds a way to soften it, contextualize it, and wash it out by the closing credits. We absorb this as kind of grammar. For years when we watched television, we accepted that the charming character was the moral character, almost by default. We needed prestige drama to teach us that the protagonist could be the problem. Saturday Morning had spent a decade teaching us he couldn't. On a real-world level, Zack was a soft launch for an archetype we'd see again and again. The boss whose temper is passion. The friend whose flakiness is just how he is. Every time a public figure smiles his way out of accountability, and we shrug and say, well, he's just like that, we're falling for the same move shows like Saved by the Bell trained us to excuse. Saved by the Bell couldn't afford to draw clear lines between charm and consent, or between charisma and character. The whole format depended on Zack being lovable, so Zack had to be lovable, even when his actions said otherwise. We grew up watching that contradiction get resolved every week in his favor. Then we walked into adult life still resolving it in his favor for other people who looked and sounded and operated like him. The pattern recognition was the real cost, not the show itself, but what the show taught us to look for in real people. We learned to give the wrong ones the benefit of the doubt because a sitcom we watched at age 9 kept telling us they earned it. Most of the time, they didn't. So this is why Zack Morris keeps getting morally re-audited online. Every couple of years a new clip surfaces, gets stripped of its laugh track, and racks up millions of views. The Funny or Die series, the TikTok edits, the Reddit threads where someone watches the pageant episode for the first time as an adult and posts a dumbfounded recap. The 2020 reboot turning Zack into a detached politician was practically a meme by the time it aired. Rewatch culture is built for this exact kind of reckoning. We grew up on this content. We have the disposable income to revisit it. And now we have the language to describe what we were watching. Manipulation, coercion, narcissism, terms that weren't really in our vocabulary at age 10. So the behavior on screen just registered as normal. Watching it back as adults, the same scenes look completely different. Zack keeps trending because Zack keeps being a useful test case. He's the cleanest example we have of a charming guy getting a pass. Every time the culture wants to talk about the pattern, he's right there in his leather jacket, smirking through the camera, asking us if we still want to be in on it. One last quick reframe. Saved by the Bell was a show about how easily a charming kid can run a friend group, a school, and an audience when the format around him refuses to ever check him. We were the format. We were the laugh track in our living rooms. We were the audience that accepted the apology, applauded the smile, and tuned in the following week ready to forgive him again. Bayside worked because we worked. Every week we gave Zack the benefit of the doubt without ever making him earn it. We have to be fair, Zack had moments. The backyard prom for Kelly when her family couldn't afford the real one. Resigning the school presidency to Jessie. Delivering a baby in an elevator during an earthquake. He had decency in him. The format kept burying it though. That's almost worse than a pure villain. A villain we could have spotted. Mark Paul Gosselaar himself has said he cringes rewatching the show and has called specific episodes problematic. The reboot knew it. The internet figured it out years ago. The only people who didn't see it for a long time were us, sitting on the carpet, eating cereal, mistaking the wink for an invitation. Zack looking right at the camera, freezing time, telling us his plan, trusting that we'd be on board. We always were. The lesson Bayside actually taught us wasn't about loyalty or growing up. It was about how easily we'd surrender our judgment to anyone confident enough to ask for it. That habit didn't end at Bayside. If you enjoyed our take on Zack Morris and the Bayside crew, please consider subscribing to our channel for more breakdowns of your favorite shows and characters from your childhood. Until next time, I thank you for watching, and please take care of yourself.